held each other, baby. We wanted something so much more, to feel the rarest of feelings that which opens all doors. Don't shut them all too quickly, there might not always be more. I'll spread your love so thickly so I can reminisce some more, even if we're done for. So I'll take it all, take it all, take it all. Sometimes it feels like I could give it all up to be held by you, but that's not all the time. No, not all the time. Only when I can't breathe, only when I wanna believe, only when it's late at night, only when it don't feel right, only when I touch my body, only when I'm feeling naughty. drops it like a tea. It's all the same to me. This game I play, I do it every day. Promise I'll be fine, bear it every time. When you turn the lights down low,
fabric remnants and cut-offs. Every year, tons of scraps are produced. A treasure that ends up in the trash. What a waste. The Lady of Colours and the shapeshifter genius have an idea to transform scraps of fabric into something surprising.
what else we can go ahead. E allora, signore e signori, buonasera, buonasera. Thank you for joining us, everybody, despite this snowy weather condition. My name is Pietro Goglia, and I am Vice Director at the Italian Trade Commission in Canada, here to welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, to celebrate the Italian Design Day. Grateful and honored to acknowledge that the land hosting this event is situated on the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Today, this land is still the home to many indigenous people, Inuit and Métis people from across Turtle Island. On this occasion, the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, with the contribution of Triennale di Milano, Salone del Mobile, Federlegno Arredo, Associazione Disegno Industriale e INTERNI Magazine, has realized a collection of images and videos, part of which have been displayed and will be displayed after the conference. The visual contents of artwork, architecture, and design tell a story about designers and manufacturers who together interpret our contemporaneity, enlightening lifestyles with both functional and beautiful pieces, while constantly adapting and evolving to address industry challenges ahead, as our future designers and manufacturers have conceived. Tonight, keynote speaker is Mario Trimarchi, who will feature a masterclass providing an in-depth look into his design process and share insights on his most successful projects. Deeper understanding of Italian design principles and techniques will mentor the numerous students, young designers, and entrepreneurs of consumer goods. A prestigious panel discussion with renowned industry design professionals like Helen Kerr. Today is the birthday of Helen Kerr. Please welcome to celebrate this special event. Helen Kerr, thank you particularly. And Lee Fletcher and Luigi Ferrara will share their insights on the latest trends and innovations in design. In the following Q&A session, ladies and gents here in person will have the opportunity to engage the panelists in a discussion about their work and design philosophy. Attendees tuned in online can also share their questions in the comments of our streaming that the moderators, Veronica Manson, Director of the Cultural Institute of and Marco Saladini, Trade Commissioner, will bring to the panel discussion. And thank you again, everybody, and invite the Consul General of Italy in Toronto, Luca Zelioli, to join the floor of the Paina Theatre, which I thank for hosting our event.
Good evening, distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. Buonasera, and welcome to the Italian Design Day, blessed, as you have seen, by the snow. The day has been established years ago jointly by our ministry, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, and the Italian Ministry of Culture. And the main purpose is promoting the creativity and innovation of Italian design on the international scene. In every country, our embassies, our consulate, together with the cultural institutes and Agenzia ICE, the trade commissions, organize activities during this day. You see the logo behind me. In Toronto, tonight's event is indeed the result of the joint effort, as it was already a bit indicated, of the Consulate General, of the Italian Cultural Institute, and the Italian Trade Commission, which took the organizational lead, by the way, of this soiree, and thank to the Agenzia ICE, the Trade Commission. My gratitude goes also to the Italian Chamber of Commerce of Ontario and to the George Brown School of Toronto for their wonderful collaboration in enriching this initiative. Design is an integral part of Italian culture. I would say it's a reflection of our way of life, which emphasizes quality, beauty, functionality, attention to detail. Italian design is renowned for style, elegance. Allow me to mention an example from Ontario. Just days ago, the new Ontario Courthouse has been officially opened by the provincial authorities who funded the project. What I am sure not many have understood in this city is that this building has been designed by two great architectural studios. The Canadian, or perhaps I should more properly say Italian-Canadian, I see the president, Silvio Baldassarre, here with us, Nord Limited, and the Italian Renzo Piano building workshop. So a Renzo Piano building, the only one in Canada, by the way, is in Toronto. I hope that the public of this beautiful city can discover soon this new architectural landmark, mix of style and functionality. Speaking about design also reminds me that in April 2023, so in just 1 month, the internationally recognized Salone del Mobile, the furniture fair in Milan, will be reopening after the pandemic. And the fair displays the very best of Italian style. I really encourage Canadians to participate, managers, representatives of the industry, designers, but also anyone interested in beauty should not miss this opportunity. I am glad, while I am ruining something, I guess, I am glad that the president of the Salone del Mobile, Maria Porro, is supporting our event with a video address, just after me. After that, our first treat, as it was already announced, a masterclass by a very influential Italian architect and designer, Mario Trimarchi. Just whispering the words Alessi, Ferragamo should suffice as example of his work. No wonder he's a testimonial of the Italian Design Day. Mr. Trimarchi, benvenuto, and thank you in advance for sharing with us your ideas, or if I may, your philosophical view about design. Then we present what I would define the most stylish panel probably seen in Toronto. Trimarchi will be joined by Helen Kerr, a leading designer thinker in Canada, and happy birthday. I didn't know that, but happy birthday. Fletcher, industrial designer focusing very much on how making objects being a positive influence in our life. And then the Dean of the Center for Arts, Design and IT at Toronto's George Brown College, Luigi Ferrara. He put the schools of design, fashion and jewelry, and computer technology in the top 5 in Canada and in the top 100 in the world. The directors of our Trade Commission and Cultural Institute, as it was already indicated, Marco Saladini and Veronica Manson, will moderate what I expect a lively discussion. And Corrado Paina, Executive Director of our Chamber of Commerce, has accepted the challenge, I would say the challenge, of making conclusive remarks. Not an easy task, as I bet our panelists will be exploring the latest trends and ideas and how design industry can improve our lives and shape our future. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you will find the evening interesting, but I can assure that the boring part is over. Strategically, we put it at the beginning when you are fresh. Do not forget to re-energize yourself after the panel, after the discussion, if you still have time, with the Italian style. I have to add these 2 words. Light refreshments available after the conclusion of the event. And with this, I conclude, and I leave you to the presentation, the video address by the president of our Salone del Mobile in Milan. Thank you for your attention.
Un saluto all'Italian Design Day nel mondo, un'occasione incredibile per parlare della qualità della ricerca, dell'innovazione che il design italiano porta avanti grazie a un'industria creativa e manifatturiera che non ha eguali nel mondo. Il Salone del Mobile inaugura a Milano, in Fiera Rho, a partire dal 18 aprile. Sarà un'occasione incredibile per scoprire tutte le nuove tendenze del design, dell'arredamento. Quest'anno ritorna Euroluce dopo 4 anni di assenza e lo fa con un layout e un concept completamente rinnovato, dove contenuti interdisciplinari faranno da sfondo e da supporto alle migliori proposte delle aziende dell'illuminazione più importanti e poi, come sempre, l'arredamento, il complemento, il workplace, un mondo incredibile di imprese, di Made in Italy e non solo, visitatori da tutto il mondo, quindi vi aspettiamo a Milano a partire dal 18 aprile.
Hi. I would like to invite you to think as an Italian designer for half an hour. So everything that I prepared here is sort of different jumps from one part of design to another one, from little company to big companies, from professional commitments to research, which is really the idea that an Italian designer should cover all these kind of aspects. So in the same day, we are facing different scale of projects, but within a general frame, which to me is just to increase the beauty on a planet. Design is also functional, solve problems, help to fight big, horrible changes, but we have not to forget every day to increase the beauty on the planet. So, starting with this, the Consul has really destroyed everything. I'm very sorry. Is there any refund for the tickets here? or perhaps batteries. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, we could go from the reverse, yeah. No. It's a pity. Okay, just let's see what happens. In the meanwhile, I think that it's important for us to understand that there are some areas of magic that we must go and try to understand what happens there. You know, objects are speaking each other. Objects are speaking with us, but we don't know. We don't know this. We think that the objects are manufactured by the companies to be sold, in order to be sold, but people don't want to buy anything else, anything more, you know. So it's a very weird moment in which perhaps my idea is that every one of us should really select just one object and design the rest of the house all around, which is not so easy. Because if I ask you how to select one object in your life, which is a criterion you could use to do this? How many objects you are surrounded with at home? How many objects you are used to call by name? You know, the name of the object to me is very important, because just in that way we could assume they have a soul, they really exist. Otherwise, they are just goods. They are not objects. They have no dignity. So if we are able to rebuild or to build from zero the relationship with the object, this could be really magic, you know. So I draw a lot. I draw night and day, day and night. And this is important because part of our job is totally based on obsession. You know that teachers say always to the students, you have to implement your curiosity. To me, curiosity is not important. Obsession is very important. If I think a couple of months on how to draw the wind, this is important because it has nothing to do with marketing briefing, of course, but the result is something which could be totally unpredictable. I produce more than 100 little modeling paper, because every time that I don't like something in the geometry, I have really to restart from zero. But at the end, I created this family of objects, which is extremely successful. It's on the market since 2009, and it sells a lot. And it's very also copied all around the world. And from a marketing briefing point of view, this is a mistake, because this is supposed to be a fruit bowl, but cherries go away from the bowl, you know, and also strawberries, and also little tangerines, and also berries, all the kind of berries, you know. So from a marketing point of view, it's a mistake. That's important. Marketing point of view sometimes doesn't fit anymore our new kind of needs, you know. And so it's also a reflection on the time, you know. If you watch this object and you go to, I don't know, to drink a glass of water and come back, the object is changing. The position is changed. The shadow is moved, you know. So you have this object which communicates to you, not just because you think to that instant of the wind, the Polaroid of the wind in this very moment, you know, but also the passing of time. So the success of this series was so high that I had this idea to translate the same idea on different kind of typologies up to the necklaces. This necklace is called Breathe on the Neck, which is beautiful. You know, you could really be free because you are asymmetric, because you are going away, because you are unpredictable. So how to express all this kind of obsession through design? Some years ago, I designed this coffee maker. How to design a coffee maker today? It's almost impossible. We are surrounded by dozens of coffee makers. So where do we have to start? I had this idea, which was an obsession at the time, to start from sculpture. If I say sculpture and design, you are it's very clear for everybody to understand the difference, the definition, the caption, you know. Sculpture is something which is not useful, or, art and applied art, all these kind of things which comes from last century. But now, if I start from sculptures, that means that I take a volume in clay, as you say, and I just take off some flakes. So I minimize my effort. I don't add anything. I just take out. And when I take out this part of material, I do this just because I have two hands with 5 fingers each in different positions, so that if I design everything to fit perfectly with my hands, this is the most easy coffee maker of the world in order to be open and closed. And I won an important prize. I was awarded by an important prize in ergonomics. You know, ergonomics, the most functional design, just starting from sculpture. This is interesting because that means that we have a great possibility, the great opportunity to put together different kind of a cultural approach or poetic approach to arrive to a great result. I call this coffee maker Ossidiana. Ossidiana is the Italian name of obsidian, the volcanic stone, which is the first prehistorical act of design. The first man taking an obsidian understood that just taking out some flake, the same way I did, this object, a stone, could become a tool or a weapon or whatever. It doesn't matter, a tool. The first design object is the obsidian. So I love to draw my obsidian totally surrounded by its dreams. The title of these drawings, it's a long series of drawings, is Obsidian is Dreaming of Its Ancestors, you know. And we are transported to this universe in which we want to touch the flint, you know, the pointed flint, and we feel something that is with us since, I don't know, 65,000 years, something magic, you know. And I have a good relationship with obsidian, and I don't call her a coffee maker. I call Ossidiana. Have you seen Ossidiana? Could you please give me Ossidiana? And also, my friends call it Ossidiana. Giving a name to the object is important. As I told you, how many objects do you call by name? If you don't call any object by name, this is something very, very wrong in our relationship with the objects. So a couple of months ago, I was particularly liking my personal Ossidiana and in black finishing, and I asked her, I gave to her my mobile phone, and I asked her to make a selfie of herself, and this is the result. This seems to be a joke, but it's real, okay? So this is the way that an object looks at itself. You know, there is a way, because when I go out of the house for 8 hours a day, objects stay there. So my house belongs to my objects. And they see the sun entering and the shadows moving and the evening arriving and all this kind of stuff. And we have to design very carefully, and we have to use very carefully this extremely rich opportunity that we have in really make love also with our objects. But in our profession, as I told you before, we have also number of different things to carry on, to run in terms of professional commitments. This is one of the biggest projects I did for a Alessi company. I design objects, but they call me also for branding systems, for designing packaging, the exhibition places. And you know, this is very typical in Italy, that you really cover all the different scales of the project. So that we design advertisement for them. We took this picture for the packaging. And the idea here is to have objects in backlighting, which is something that nobody uses. But these objects are so iconic that you could recognize, even though you see just 3/4 of the image on the packaging, you know? And the testimonials, they are very important. International designers which not just give the picture of their face, but they write something. They participate to this increasing offer of beauty all around the world, you know? And then, of course, we also work for that kind of company in Italy, a company who want to be the best company in the world in that sectors. And working with this company is beautiful because it's sort of Olympic Games, you know. They want to be the best, and they have a big problem because they could be copied if they just generate standard product. They have to be magic. So when I work with that company in terms of communication and graphics, for instance, like Artemide case, Artemide is lighting producer, we don't shoot the picture of the products in the catalog. We also insert some picture of the product, of course, but the communication is the quality. Quality is most important than all the products altogether. Quality means to make everything perfectly. And Olivetti, you know, long story company in Italy, we design a lot of graphics and communication for them during the year with a very, very fresh approach in which we sell Olivetti, we sell technology, but first of all, we try to sell Italy. Italy, always, every time that we could sell Italy, because Italy means an approach, a way which is unique in the world, a way of searching for an extremely high degree of quality. When I won the contest for the corporate identity of Poste Italiane, I won because everybody was concerned in designing a logo telling the story of the Poste, you know, while we worked on a philosophy based on the shifted balance, we call that way, because we designed Italiane. We didn't design anything about Post, but we designed just Italy. So this was the logo at the time. It was impossible to be patented because it contains a picture. It's the first time in the world that the logo contains a picture. And pictures are, the picture is not just one. There are 6 pictures on the different landscapes in Italy, so that people could really be proud of working with Poste, because this is Italy. This is the Monte Bianco, this is the Sardinia Sea, this is Tuscany, you know, the image of Italy. And when we designed this system for the trucks of the garbage company in Milan, we designed garbage as flowers. You know, if you see the flowers, my sketch, and the garbage is the same. Garbage is the same of flowers. And we put these kind of images in a truck, writing that nothing is created, nothing is destroyed, but everything is transformed. You remember Lavoisier, no? So this is kind of message that a simple company dealing with garbage, so something really that well, it's not so elegant, if you want, but they at least, they were the most elegant trucks in Europe. Then I wrote this book, which is called Good Morning Design. And now in reality, I just wrote 2 pages, but I did the art direction for a company, Italian company manufacturing sanitary fitting, you know, sanitary ware. Not very elegant, of course, you know. If you take pictures of a sanitary ware in the toilet, in the most beautiful toilet, in the most beautiful hotel in the world, you know, it's so miserable because it's just functional, because you have just 1.5 meter between the camera and this object, so it's impossible. So I imagined that mankind leave the planet, finally for the planet, and just architecture and sanitary fittings stay there. So these kind of basins and other products finally went to the courtyard, went to the big, beautiful architecture. We went all around Italy to look for Aldo Rossi's architecture, Renzo Piano, Fuchs's, Zaha Hadid, and in all these architecture, we placed these humble objects speaking each other, chattering, saying something against human being. You know, I don't know, but it was something in which the relationship between the objects, the products, and the architecture is so funny to see, you know. What is the difference? Where is the border? It's like this borderline between sculpture and design that I was speaking about a moment before regarding my coffee maker. Here, what is architecture? What is product design? It's the same. The main subject is beauty, independently from the scale of the intervention. And then graphics, of course, graphics and branding, and we always design systems where you are not obliged to read the logo, to read the words of the name of the company. You recognize the company because of the system, because of the precise yellow of Poste Italiane, because of the flowers for the garbage, because of these dots for a cultural center. This was a very big intervention we make for Biennale di Venezia. You know, the Arsenale, Corderia dell'Arsenale, it's a giant place where they manufactured accessories for the ships at the time. And we designed the longest architectural review in the history of the world. 1 kilometer of a magazine, you know, totally hanged on the wall with no pictures of architecture, no models, nothing, just data, big data, 2006 at the time, and everything in black and white. And you could understand the changes of the world, the changes of the human relationship, the high-speed train, how does it changes the conditions of people just because of these drawings, because of this collection of numbers and figures and data and so on. And it was the same for a big exhibition we dealt in for Paris, Milan, and Tokyo, for Fabrica, you know, the communication school founded by Benetton in Italy. And we designed this system which seems to collapse from one moment to the other one with interesting geometries, you know, and trying to express the enormous quantity of energy that they were dealing with during the educational program. And then we arrived to Created in Italy. Created in Italy is an exhibition which I had the honor to design graphics and exhibition system, sponsored by the Cultural Institute of the Italian Institute of Culture all around the world. The exhibition was opened 1 year ago in San Francisco, then went to Melbourne, and now is in Jakarta. Yesterday they invited me to open, because yesterday was supposed to be the opening, and it was not so easy. They're a little bit unlikely to be here in Jakarta at the same time, and it's a little bit a pity. But I love this work, because if you read the subtitle, you know, in life, subtitles are more important than the title. The subtitle here is An Aptitude for the Impossible. What does it mean? If I, as a designer, go to, let me say, Germany, and ask a company, it doesn't matter which level of the company, to do something totally new, they answer to me, oh no, it's impossible. And this is very frustrating, If I go to an Italian company, generally speaking, they say to me, we never make it, but we try. So this we try, that it's normal in a relationship between a designer and a company, it's really a treasure, it's a privilege, you know. We have to try. So this exhibition covers 33 different kind of objects or materials, which are absolutely extraordinary. This wood, which is totally reconstructed wood, 100% natural, but with this shape, which are totally artificial. Or the sickles, you know, that Italy hosts the most important company and factory of sickles of the world, and you don't have any image of how many sickles are needed every year by a lot of countries that you can imagine, that where the property of land is so small, for instance. Together with carbon fiber, with aluminium big mold, with play tools for Montessori philosophy school, from bioplastic materials based bags, something incredible, you know, clothes which contains the back protection or the airbag, all these kind of Olympic records, you know. And this is one of the pictures in San Francisco, for instance. We offer also assistance of the graphics, which is personalized. And this is something interesting because it covers the attitude, this magic, something special that Italian companies have really the pleasure to investigate every time that we challenge them. Just two more words on this project, which I like particularly, and it's an explanation on how crazy could be invent something in Italy. I was asked by Yamaha, a company from Japan, to send them some sketch of motorbike, because every year they do something that they call a concept motorbike, you know, like the concept car, showing what could be the future of these objects. And I send them some drawing about a copper motorbike. And they say, no, we don't like it. And then after 1 month, I remake all the drawings and I resend to them, and they said with a certain embarrassment, no, we don't like. And so I was very frustrating. So the third time I submit to them other drawings, and they say, no, Mr. Trimarchi, we definitely don't like. They, and their philosophy, it was really weird to them, or unlikely, to say to me, we are not able to manufacture this bike. It was better to say we don't like. So I was extremely frustrated, because to my idea, making a copper motorbike, it's a great thing. Copper motorbike means that you buy a motorbike totally, beautifully in copper, and after 100 years, the motorbike will be green because of the oxidation of copper. So you have to wait for 1 century to see the final result. While generally speaking, you throw away a motorbike model after 7 years, or just because there is the new model, the new version. So I went to Ducati, you know Ducati Corporation. They manufacture this bike driven by Tom Cruise in all these movies and so forth. And Ducati say, oh, it's beautiful, but it's not our style, it's not our design approach. But we like so much, and we give you as a gift a chassis of the Ducati Monster. You know what is Ducati Monster is? I don't know how many 100 kilos of engines and more than 2 meters long. It's really a beast. It's something unbelievable. And I say, that is great. What I have to do with this chassis? I went to a company, an Italian company, making working metals mainly for architecture. The name of this company is De Castelli. And they say, you're crazy, but it's a beautiful project. We want to challenge ourselves. We never make a motorbike There is just one problem. Melding the copper is very difficult. So we are first to meld iron, to design, and to produce, to manufacture a one-to-one scale, a real scale, iron model, put on the engine, adjust all the details, and then we throw away, but on that base, we design the bodywork in copper. So the same technique of Issei Miyake, the same technique of the paper models in fashion. And I say, you're more crazy than me, but it's a good way to begin. So at the end of the day, this is the picture of this motorbike was exposed during the Salone del Mobile a couple of years ago. It has an extremely great success. It was published by both all the design magazines in the world and on the motorbike magazines of the world. So I got a lot of followers. But people who are crazy motorbike, I don't understand anything about bike, And the idea here is that there is just one body. The person and the motorbike has the same lines. It's very cubist, So this is the way of approaching the subject of long-lasting products, duration over the time, for instance, in a very positive way. Not to say, this is not good, this is not good, this is not good. Say just relaxing. Do we design something which lasts as a piece of architecture, with the same material of the architecture? So we spend a lot of time to do this, and this company spent a lot of money. 2 years ago, I received an email from a man from Kazakhstan. He was a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, because he is owning copper mines, and he say, I want to buy this model. And this company, the Italian company, say, I don't want to sell, because every time that architects come here, they take a lot of selfie with this motorbike, they jump on the motor, and at the end they say, yeah, but we could do, we could really make a lot of money with this. I say, why a lot of money? It's a motorbike. And I say, no, it's not a motorbike. It's a motorbike which doesn't have the essential parts, mechanical parts, to be switched on. So it's a particular motorbike which is not able to ride, to go on the street. So it's an artwork. That means that you could sell 10 times for a price of a Ducati Monster, So we succeed in this. You believe in this story. It's really a true story. And this is the way I intend when I speak about the Italian companies. They're so open in doing crazy things because they know that they are the only one in the world which really want to go out of chart, always. They must go out of chart if they want to stay at the top level. And of course, jumping, sorry for jumping, but jumping is interesting, craftsmanship. I had a long relationship with Japan. I went there more than 15 times. I work with a lot of companies and so on, and I work with craftsmen in Japan, the best craftsman of the world. This is Arita porcelain with a thickness that you can't imagine, less than 1 millimeter. And the wood is manufactured by Mr. Nishigawa, which is perhaps the most skilled artisan, wood artisan in the world. Why I designed this object? First of all, the name of the object is Hope. Hope because also a flower could really live in a desert, on this kind of very dusty platform. And then it is irregular, Look how irregular is this. It seems to be done by bites, But what about the use? This is a box. You could put all the very, very precious things you have at home in these boxes. Okay, from a functional point of view, you pay a lot of money, but you have a box. But my personal use is not to storage objects in this box. It's to smell. I open the box, I put my nose really into the box, and I smell a great, fantastic smell of cedar wood Japanese cedar wood. If you are in a bad day, if you are in a bad meeting, if you are a lot of different worries in a head, you stop for 10 seconds. You put a nose there, you smell, and you're okay. You know. So this is functional design, super ergonomical functional design, pragmatical. You know. And the name of the motorbike is Samotracia. You know, Samotracia is the Nike. You know the statue in Louvre in Paris. Samotracia means that a motorbike, it's not important that a motorbike goes very fast. It's important that wins. Then jump into a very cheap product. This is silicone family of molded for dessert, you know. And you always could buy for nothing these molds. They are horrible, they are pink, you know, pink or chocolate color, these kind of things. Here my idea was to design islands, little islands. In a pack of 6, you have 6 different islands because your guests are different each other, so that you could devote one of this for Giovanni and another one for Carmelo and another one for another person, you know, so that you decide who belongs one of these islands. We have in black color, very, very strong, or white, that you could use also as a cloche, you know, in the French cuisine, you have everything white, and then, wow, you open, and you could really cook little architecture. And you don't know how high is the pleasure of an architect to eat an architecture, small architecture, to destroy it to buy it, you know. And so we also provide the company with a book of recipes, and we worked with a chef, with a very important chef, to have all these kind of dishes that we suggest to the people buying this. And now the jump. Salvatore Ferragamo is a very, very famous and very well-known fashion brand, Italian fashion brand, has developed together with a Sicilian startup a new kind of fabric, which is called orange fiber, and it's produced by the waste of the citrus production. I'm Sicilian originally, so that they thought a very nice thing. They thought we don't have to call some Korean new young student of Central St. Martin in London. It's better to go to a Sicilian architect to do something with a Sicilian fabric produced by the oranges waste. Great. And they asked me to do something on about an idea of Mediterranean mood. You know that Mediterranean mood means prickle pears, strong colors, very folkloristic approach all around the world. I say, well, we do everything in black and white. They were very curious about this idea, and I did everything. I drew everything, 1-to-1 scale, 1.5 meter by 1 meter. It was really, really very stressing to me. But the idea was so strong that they told me that I had at disposition 7 different shop windows in 7 flagship stores all around the world, where they don't just show the product, but they put our idea of Mediterranean flavors and mood in the whole architecture of the shop windows. So at the end of the day, I just designed the Mediterranean smells, the flavors, the jasmines, the zagara flowers, you know, the citrus flowers going in the wind, in the Mediterranean wind. So it was something absolutely literary, and the collection, the capsule collection, was sold out in 1 week, mainly in the Emirates. Don't ask me why, I don't understand. But the idea is to have this little bougainville, this jasmine, and these little flowers flying over the whole Mediterranean area. I love very much this collection. Collection was composed by 23 different kind of clothes, from bandanas to scarves to carré to foulard to skirts and whatever. And then, you know, in our profession, also happens to design a very high-end kind of faucet for the Finnish market, and it's a faucet which is supposed to be placed in an island of a very expensive kitchen space. So it's beautiful to design this from behind, you know, from the back. And designing a faucet from the back, I'm sure it's really a great experience because nobody did it before. Here, this is one of my most recent projects. It's something also very stupid if you want just a carafe. What is the thrill if we have to design a carafe, 50 euros carafe? It doesn't matter, it's something which doesn't worth it perhaps, but I think that everything is worth it, and the idea of seizing beauty. So here I was really focused on designing the gesture, on designing the elegance of the fingers which touch this bamboo in glass. And there is only one way to pour glasses appropriately. If you do a little mistake, an inclination, and a speed, and a movement, water goes everywhere, you know. So an object obliges you to be elegant. Such a miracle, you know. And it's great. People look at these objects and say, I don't understand. Why a glass on the top of a carafe? What does it mean? But when you experience this movement, this touch, this inclination, it's something magic, you know. Then I also designed a number of little, very, very little objects for makeup and beauty, you know. These objects which costs not so much money, but represents very much for a woman sometimes. The briefing that I have invented for the company, because they told me, you could design whatever you want, doesn't matter, you know, whatever shape you want. I say, okay, we design just shapes that a woman totally dressed in black, with a black bag, in a black toilet of a black discotheque, you know, with the eyes closed and the light off, she put the hand into the bag and she recognized the lipstick in the middle of the mess that you can imagine in a bag, you know. So everything was designed just to be touched, to be recognized, to have this feeling that these objects belong to me. And also I belong to these objects because I don't go out if I don't use it, and so on. Yeah? And then also in the most humble objects of the house, the doors, for instance, you could put some dream, some memory, some flavor of your life. You know, I designed this system of semi-transparent doors and partition walls with the laser cut metals in between the two fabrics so that you could put whatever you want. I put an olive tree branch, and then a vase, and then a comet star, and a swallow, and a flamingo. You could really enjoy the idea that also a door could say something about you. And then time that I was asked to design a sound-absorbing panel system like this. This is a Chicago skyscraper. I really don't know why did they spend so much money in buying my product. My product is the green one that you see on the top of the slide. It's not a failed ceiling. You know that generally speaking, they are square panels, rectangular panels. I designed leaves and branches and pieces of tree because to me, the silence, the sound absorbing function is really the condition that you live when you are under the tree. You know, you're under the tree, there is the sun, you have this beautiful shadow that transport you at the Louvre in the Impressionist section, you know, and this is the idea of silence, so that you could represent something in a very, very appropriate way, just changing the normal shape. I'm finishing. Don't worry. No. It's not so. It's not so easy. In these very last years, I started to watch art in a particular way. Art is something which is into the design, and design is something which leads into the art. So I designed some collection of items just to show some idea of qualities and beauties. For instance, all these kind of pieces that you can really say what they are for, what is the purpose. They are designed for hosting fruits, and with different materials, from aircraft aluminium to wood to weaving to everything. The idea is to make the fruit comfortable. If you are a fruit, so grapes, for instance, or a bunch, where do you put a bunch, generally speaking? In a container. And the berries are touching the surfaces of the container. It's horrible. The grapes don't breathe. It's something really violent that you make against fruits, Fruits have to breathe, because if fruits breathe well at home, I breathe well. And if I breathe well, I think well, and I live well. So everything is beautiful, But what about the Platonic idea of the container? What is in and what is out? Where's the grape, the grape supposed to be? In, out, right, left, under? We don't know. But we know that we pickle the grapes, we pickle the berries in the same way that we do in Sicily in a pergola, from the plant. And that's beautiful. The same for bananas. Look at this. This is designed for letting some banana going away if they want, or letting some banana sleep, or letting some banana be awake. So respect, It seems to be a joke, but it's beauty, So this is a monument in terracotta that I make in Tuscany. It's almost 3 meters high, and it's very dangerous, of course. But the name of this object is instant. I am obsessed by this idea of time. The shape of this object now is this way, but who could say in 5 seconds how it would be this object? I come from Messina, which was totally destroyed by an earthquake 100 years ago. And this idea of earthquake, I try to transmit, I try to translate in some of my objects that you don't know how do they stand, objects that could change their face in 1 second. And now, people very worried. They're scared. This is my relationship with a craftsman from Korea. Korean craftsmen are totally supported by government, and they do beautiful things. This is forged brass, something that we don't find in Europe, for instance. And I had this idea for an exhibition to design 5 altars. You know why altars? Because it's the only object that I am sure you don't have at home. So it's a new market, it's a new, beautiful, enormous market. Nobody got the altars at home. And it's very funny because we got altars for millions of years at home in the cave, and then in the other kind of houses. This is an altar for offering tangerines. You could use 2 ways, depending on the number of tangerines that you want to offer to the god, of course. And this is for offering incense, This is for offering fires, and look to the surface, And this is the very last project that I show you. It's called Close to the Edge. It's a reflection on our totally unstable balance which represents our life today. Pieces of marble with beautiful flowers in glass, transparent glass. Very solid marble, very transparent glass. Something natural, something artificial, something like a desert, like something like flowers. Totally unstable balance, because I really think that today we live in this condition of being close to the edge, but I want to take as an opportunity to create the beauty to live this moment of being close to the edge. Thank you.
Grazie Mario, grazie. Stay with us, Mario, please. Stay with us. And let's start our panel discussion session. And I'm so excited to welcome, and please keep clapping your hand because we are announcing again Helen Kerr. Thank you, Helen. Fletcher. Luigi Ferrara. Moderates our panel discussion, Veronica Manson and Marco Saladini.
Design in Canada. Ooh. And I can pass my microphone to, I'll start with Luigi Ferrara, Dean of George Brown College School of Design.
Well, contemporary design in Canada is, I think at the moment, it's a very mixed thing. It's obviously being influenced by issues like sustainability, identity, global relevance. Those are the kind of issues. But when I think of Canadian design, I think the most powerful Canadian design has always grown out of the context of Canada. So when we've had excellence in design, it's through a tremendous need. So we are outstanding in transportation design. We have been outstanding in telecommunication design. And when you have such a vast geography and such great distances between people, the need for great transportation and great communication across distance has precipitated, I would say, our classics of design, whether it's something like a skidoo or a sea-doo or a train, or if you think of the telephone and the incredible contemporaphone, there's always been a tradition in these sectors of excellent design and innovative design that's truly Canadian. In other sectors, we've always been more influenced from abroad, and we have a bit of, I would say, a colonial character. So the places where we drop the colonial character and really develop a design that is our own are in these interactions with our environment, with the weather, with the distance, with the need for communication.
Thank you, Luigi. That was interesting, talking about new design arising out of need and great design coming out of need like that. I think right now it's very interesting. I work mainly in office furniture, so my perspective is a little narrower perhaps than others. But one of the things that I find is a big driver at the moment is the simple thing of supply chain. So the result of the things that I design have to be made, and supply chains have changed significantly over the past few years, and that's influencing the kind of work we do. So there is a need in rethinking supply chain, which is giving us new opportunities to design things differently. And I find that's quite an interesting thing. I'm doing a project at the moment, and the main driver is to eliminate the use of Russian plywood and replace it with steel parts, right? Because those are becoming very difficult to get. And so it's the seed of an idea that comes out of a very real, a very pragmatic need that's leading to a different design approach to what would be a more conventional way of constructing that kind of product. So it's quite interesting.
It's interesting that my own design practice has changed so much over the last 20 years. And so at the beginning, we did make things that fit in people's homes, and now our work is much more on a level of how we live and the kinds of interactions we have in cities with each other. And so design has transcended the object, and maybe that's a really good thing, that we have a world filled with so many objects that we love, and better that we love them, but that there are enough of them, perhaps. And so the place for design, I think, has changed. As much as the look and feel of design, the place for design has changed. So how we make things, how it's manufactured, how we live in the city, how we move around, are all really important questions, I think, for us to answer as designers.
It's true. So it was part of my question, and it says, besides beauty and functionality, climate change, and also, as you say, like a changing world where supply chains are a little bit more difficult to achieve, are imposing new challenges, especially in design and manufacturing techniques, forcing the sectors to find new ways to produce and consume. Now, but I remember we were talking also before, to prepare for this meeting, that Canada is, first of all, the second largest country in the world, but it is also a land of plenty. So, but have you noticed a change in designing techniques or in material, choice of materials and so forth in the last, say, 5 to 10 years? You go first.
So I think that young designers particularly are adamantly looking at the sustainability of the works that they're doing. And so they push us as maybe more established designers to think differently. And manufacturers, sometimes not because they're trying to be environmentally beneficial, but because there's an economic benefit to do that, are choosing more better choices of materials, eliminating waste wherever they can, and thinking in more global ways, but sometimes just because it's a good economic decision to do that. And we were talking about plenty. Canada is a place of plenty, and so sometimes we forget that, we still need to think about how much water we use, how much wood we use, how much material we use overall, how much energy we use, because we have so much, right?
I could see I'm originally from England, so I've got a split perspective on Canada, and is this vast place of plenty. But on the other hand, compared with England, we've got half the population that the UK does here. So there is abundance in one perspective, and there is less in population, and I think that does change. And we're also a long way apart from each other, and I think that can change things, because the transport of things between different, with manufacturing things, we certainly deal with component supplies in various places, and in North America, some of the distances, we can still be in the country, but the distances can be vast that you're traveling from one place to another. And it does create sort of a curious dichotomy between the plenty that we have, but there's also some limits. There can be definite limits to that as well.
I think, when I think of what is the poetry of contemporary Canadian design, it's in the oddest places that you will find it. I'll never forget when I was running the design exchange, I had a guest from Italy, Maria Grazia Mattei, come through, and I was showing her certain designs, but she was immediately drawn to sort of this plastic sleigh that was from Canadian Tire that John Arnott had designed. And if I think of the products that are at Canadian Tire, that sort of a young generation of designers are working, or even the young generation of designers that are working at Umbra and other places, there is a kind of poetry of utility and of poetry of interaction. So when I'm looking at the work of Mario, which is so related to the poetry of, I would say, living well and appreciating things. And I was just telling everyone, we were in Italy, we had gone to see a movie, and before that we were just grabbing a bite, and my wife saw L'Ossidiana, and she said, I want that. And we were about to buy it, and I had to remind her that we had 8 Bialettis, and so we didn't, but the thing is that there is this poetry of living well. In Canada, if I'm thinking of the young designers, and I'm thinking there's this poetry of utility that is really evident in the oddest places. And so if you were to make, it's interesting, the collection of the Design Exchange has just made its way into the Royal Ontario Museum, the collection we started. Design Exchange is closed, the collection lives on at the museum. It's composed of things like tea kettles that were electric because they were made from the headlight of a light from a McLaughlin car after the war. And so we have this poetic way of loving the practical, is the way I would describe it. So it's a different kind of poetry than the life well lived. It's a poetry of the practical, and I think that continues on in the designs that you see from young designers, especially as they're trying to make their way to sustainable designs and trying to come up with really more and more simple solutions that are often craft and customizable. We live in a world of these product service systems that are really globally dominated by a few companies, so that the young designers are more and more working almost in self-production or in event and interface and customization of experiences. So it's industrial design in a new way, is the way I would describe it, like Helen had referred to it.
That's true. So basically, because I think design is definitely feeling the challenge of what is coming. So using different kind of resources, using different kind of manufacturing process and so forth. Do you think, and this is really for the four of you, do you really think this design is able to change or shape the market? And can design change a consumer habit? By creating an object, you change, maybe you create a use for it, or you change the consumer habit, and therefore you change the economy.
So, I fundamentally believe that design is, like we have literacy and numeracy, design is sensoracy, and it fundamentally changes everything about humanity. In fact, it's one of the only things that changes humanity. It's as powerful as the written word, as powerful as numbers or finance. And I think your flint, the reason, Mario picked on the flint, that flint changed everything for humanity. And it's a piece of design that we shaped, that reshaped us. And I think all the most powerful designs, when you think of the Apple computer that took Xerox PARC's technology, reassembled it and integrated it so that we had a computer at home instead of a central computer in a computer room. Think of what that has done to our lives. So to me, there's almost no more powerful force in the world. It's so invisible to us because it's everywhere around us. It's this microphone, this chair, the graphics that are telling us to leave if we're in an emergency. It's just everywhere around us. It's this sensoricy that is changing. And if you think about it that way, sorry to dwell on this, like if I asked you what this was, everyone would say a chair, right? If we were all calling it something different, the reason that we agree on the world is because we agree that the things that are existing around us are common to us. And design has that power to then narrate all our life stories by the way that these elements in our lives are composed and brought together in a kind of symphony of our life.
Well, thanks, Luigi. That's a tough act to follow. I think absolutely that design has the power to change the way that we live, and I mean I support everything that Luigi said, and it's kind of central to who we are. We manifest the things that there's. I read something recently where artist solves their own problems, and a designer solves other people's problems, and it's like. It's the manifestation of a whole variety of complexities that come together. And those things are manifest in a way that people will interpret and people will interact with and engage with, and they will inherently change behavior. One of the examples I often think of, which is perhaps a curious one, but I think about office furniture. Task chairs that people used to sit in all the time used to be very highly functional, highly articulated, heavily adjusted things. And over time, people realized that most people never adjusted them, and people didn't sit in them for as long as they thought. And so people started, then the requirement was that you'd spend less money on those chairs, and that created a new approach, which created a different kind of behavior. Chairs are now more casual in how they're used. They don't have the inherent adjustments and things like that. And I mean, I suppose in some ways that's really the object is responding to people's behavior rather than the other way around. I mean, I very much liked, Mary, the personality that you brought to all these products is something that I find myself in a very pragmatic sense working with my clients in a nuts and bolts way, and sometimes lose the perspective of that poetry and that life that these objects have. But there's that dialogue, so the behavior will change the object and the object will change behavior. And I think it's an ongoing thing that I certainly gets me up in the morning anyway.
Yes, and so poetry is profound, right? It hits you and it gives you meaning for life, and designers can contribute to that for sure. But design is also a service that you provide to the people that use your design, and so much of what we do in our work is unknown and invisible, right? So I'm thinking of creating transportation wayfinding system in the city. And so when have we designed it really well? When people choose to go from here to there, and they don't even know that anything along the way was designed for their needs all the way through, that it's invisible, but it's elevating, that you can have a journey that's delightful instead of a journey that's frustrating and horrible and makes you not choose to take transit, for example. So yes, it changes behavior, but sometimes in ways that are completely unconscious and invisible and beneficial.
May I pick a word from your intervention? Elevating. I like it very much. Elevating. You know, you're right. From the flint to the immaterial of services to the magic, you know, we are always speaking about poetry anyway. It could be invisible, it could be practical, it could be mysterious, but the idea that if we all say, okay, see you in 1 week, and we will be here despite the snow in 1 week, or in 10 years, or in 20 years. What about if I say, see you here in 100 here? Perhaps just 1 or 2 of you will be here. But if I have here on the table, on this table, a little glass manufactured by IKEA that you could buy for $50, you know, it stays here for 3,000 years from now on. And if someone will enter in 3,000 years, he or she could drink into this glass in 3,000 years because it would be perfect. Today I was on a Rome museum. There is a bottle designed in Palestine 1,900 years ago. You could drink it. So this is part of the responsibility. In the same way, Helen says, we have to elevate also the material part of design. We have to elevate also the most miserable objects because today we are able to really to create magic. Something that we buy for $50, which lasts 10 or 20 or 30 generations of people. It's incredible. You know? It's responsibility.
So you have a huge responsibility, it's like shaping the market, creating objects that will last and overlast us. So the responsibility of designers. Let me pass you to the microphone to Marco Saladini, our trade commissioner.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I like to focus on the relationship between the designer and the manufacturing links of the value chain that is by which you then produce things that are enjoyed by the consumer, by each one of us. So my question is, what are some major challenges and achievements that you experience in this relationship between you and those who actually produce those objects? And were Italian technologies, inputs, or craftsmanship in the picture? And if so, what role did they play? And I mean, maybe the second part of the question is too obvious for Mario, but could be not so obvious for the Canadians. No, but he can answer the first part if you want.
I don't know, it's a really bit disrupted today, speaking about consumers and markets, because they don't exist anymore. If I speak to a person who doesn't come from China or from Vietnam, nobody buys anything else now. In Italy, nobody buys objects. Nobody loves objects. If you go in a primary school in Italy, it's the worst place of the world, you know. So you're not educated in having a relationship with the objects. And today, young people buy experiences. They go to restaurants instead of buying objects. That's very interesting because it's the first time after the revolution, after the Industrial Revolution, that we can't speak anymore about market and about consumers. Nobody consumes anything, just the hamburgers and chips, you know. That's funny because it's new. This is a great challenge. For this reason, we have not to try to sell objects, things, material things. We have to design the rest of the idea, you know. But at the same time, we are living in an environment which is so full of objects that we can't imagine. I am writing a little article now which starts with this sentence. In Milan, there are 50 millions of chairs. Do you have any idea on how many chairs are in Toronto? All these skyscrapers that will be full of chairs. Perhaps 200 millions of chairs in the same city. That's not funny, because if I think to all the chairs I use during a day, imagine you have a chair for the breakfast. Then you go to the office and perhaps you sit down on a tram or on a subway, you know, on a bus, on a train, on a car. Wow. Then I arrive to the office. How many chairs do I use in a big office, you know? The chairs that he's describing before, and then the chairs for using computers, and then the chair for a meeting room, and then the chair for rest, and then the chair of the restaurant. There are days in which I sit down in 20 chairs, including cinemas, church, if it's Sunday. You know, it's unbelievable. Have you already thought on how many chairs do you have in your city? We don't think to these objects. How many objects do you have home? Which one is the most old objects that you own at home? Why this object is there? Where does this object come from? From the family, from a gift of someone who's dead? Think to these strange, very weird environment that we have built, and we are absolutely not conscious about all this. We have no consciousness about this. And then there is also the design of the services. For instance, all these places where the sharing biking system works perfectly. How ugly are the bicycles? How ugly is it with an international style? I take the same bicycle in China, in Milan, in Paris. Where is the sense of this? Who designed this?
But pragmatically, to build exactly on that, so that is a sentiment, but it also underlies the challenge for manufacturers. And so if they were able to shift their approach, and rather than only building a new thing out of new materials, that they took an existing thing and evolved it, right? Maybe with a reuse of materials. So it's a challenge for manufacturers to work in a new way, to move through their production lines and rethink the source of materials and reconfigure their machinery to repurpose what we already have. Because you're right, we have way too many chairs. And so we both want to design a new chair, but how much better would it be if we adapted an existing chair and worked with the manufacturer to rethink their methodologies and rethink their material flow? Right?
Yeah, I think one of the ideas I often think about is everything that I design is going to be made. It's made out of materials that have come from somewhere, and I deeply believe that there's a sacredness to materials. There's a finite amount of materials that are around, and that we have a responsibility to use those materials well. In the glass that could be there for thousands of years, I think there's a responsibility in that. So I think further to what you're talking about, Helen, is that there's a great challenge and a great opportunity, I think, in rethinking the way we make things, because I'm often curious about younger generations that are not buying things, and yet the irony is they're surrounded by things, and people, until we become virtual, while we're physical, will always need things. And those things will need to be designed and made in some way out of some material. So I do find it curious that in a lot of the things that I read, that the making of things is getting less of a focus, and a lot of the experience of things is getting a lot more of a focus, but the reality is we still need things. So to your question about the relationship between art and design, I think that perhaps is more important than ever, because to bring that sculptural soul to an object we're turning materials into, surely it has the higher chance of having some much greater value if it has an artistic soul rather than simply a commodity that's made of something else. That's our job, to balance all of those things, which is, the challenge. But I think, and then working with manufacturers, I think, I do have, I've had some loose contact with Italian manufacturers, and I've been always amazed and somewhat envious that we don't have that attitude. That attitude that you're talking about of, we don't know that we can do it, but we'll try, is something that I think I wish we had a little more of here. We don't often get that willingness to try here that I find evident in what at least my perception, never having worked directly, but at least that's my perception. So I hope to get more of that.
Definitely how you characterized the Italian ecosystem as one of trying. It's also one of caring about excellence. In Canada, you could, I remember designing something for Magna, and we had to get a prototype, and the Canadian prototype took 3.5 months. The Chinese prototype took a week. The Canadian prototype still didn't work. So the manufacturers here are impoverished, and it's not always been like that. We were a manufacturing powerhouse, but with the transformation of the economy into a post-industrial economy, our manufacturing is really become impoverished. But the attitude was never there of, it is born of the, you can get this in black, and black, which was like the Fordian model. But to me, the change that's coming, I taught a session in Milan to the architecture faculty at the Politecnico in January, and I had the students using artificial intelligence to help them with their design. And you're talking about, the 50 million chairs in Milan. Well, imagine when you start to put in the requirements for chairs, and artificial intelligence is, in this case, it almost gave the professors and the students a heart attack, because within an hour and a half, we had at least 40 different versions of a climate-positive neighborhood, with images generated by DALL-E, right? So what happens in that case where you have these information technology tools? So I've always been trying to work, and I was happy to be able to show you, Mario, some of those things where if you imagine objects not as products, but as elements that can be recombined and reinterpreted and persist through time, and that the role of the designer changes and the role of the manufacturer changes, in the sense that people are actually able to use these elements, reinterpret them, recombine them, and then they'll be persisting in time, and that they're able to self-manufacture them. And with the democratization, in effect, that comes with AI, that we're returning design. My mother was an immigrant from Italy, but in her family, there were 4 daughters, and each one of them had a different craft. They had to produce what they consumed. My mother knit, my other aunt embroidered, the other aunt crocheted, and the other one was a dressmaker. But they had to build their world, and they designed according to conventions, and then they elaborated this poetry out of those conventions. I think our future world of design is going to be more like that. And the designer is going to have a much deeper role as almost like a builder of conventions that other people can manipulate and make. And so, to me, I'm looking forward to that new process and trying to imagine that new process, because I think the current process has proliferated products, but there'll become a point where it is too much. And so what we need to do is imagine a world that is recombinant, is the word that I would use.
Thank you. So we open to the audience. I think this is the time before we then get some refreshments, as we said. Are there any questions? Don't be shy. Yes, come here, please. Or we'll bring the microphone there. Yeah.
Thank you for wonderful topics. And then the question I got regarding the IKEA, there was a wonderful case about IKEA glass still sitting after 100 years. The way I see it, it might have been a case in my generation or old generation where design had a mission to last, to bring the stories of generations. But do you think the modern design and the way things are developing, the way things are going so fast, I see that we might not even drink the water same way as we do now in 100 years. So how do you address those topics? How design can address such a change? And what other missions, other goals design might adopt during this time? Thank you.
Good question, thank you.
You know that in the Mediterranean Sea, we stop fishing activities for 2 months every year in order to let little fish grow. I have this idea to propose to all the design schools in the world to stop activity for a couple of years. And no, but this is not a provocation. That means the design needs to rethink its mission. Because if a young student coming from whatever you want, Google whatever word, chair, glass, light, spectacles, whatever, he or she finds millions of answers. So the first reaction is, why we do this profession? Nobody needs design today. Yeah, for sure. Don't worry. Okay. So that's the point, which is really challenging, you know. And all these answers try perhaps to put some brick to build this new wall. What about the future? But what is the future of human being as inhabitant of this planet? Why do we want to stay here for 120 years, each of us? It makes no sense, you know. We live too much. We live too much, and part of our life we are ill, we're sick, you know. Well, what is the sense? We are doing, 90% of the things we are doing has no sense at all. So I try to find a sort of place in which I rest and I stay silent, just trying to focus poetry. But it's important that someone else focus material services or the way of elevating the existing things or systems or new wooden construction. You know, there's space for a lot of specialization. The only thing that has to be really redesigned is the school. Is the school. When I teach in Milan, and 50% of my students are from China. These are the only person who buy clothes. Tremendous amount of clothes for a simple reason that they put a pant and then a skirt. So they use double objects, double clothes, the double garments, double accessories, everything. 2 belts, you know, why 2 belts? 3 clocks, 3 watches, why, you know? Sneakers with the fours, something crazy but beautiful. I don't understand very much this, But we want to watch this kind of world, not because it changes our rule, but because our rule are no more intelligent, are no more smart. You know how many objects do we have in the planet? Nobody think about it. Nobody think about it. It's an enormous mess of objects. And at the end of the day, at the end of centuries of civilization, nobody of you, I'm sure, loves objects. Nobody of you, I'm sure. That's terrible. That's terrible. This is something I don't want to live in this planet where people don't love objects. I want people to love objects. The only place in which there is a good policy is Denmark. If you go to Denmark primary school, the primary school in Denmark are fitted with the lamp designed by Poulsen, the chair, the handles, the little details, all the connection between the floor and they are the most beautiful places in the town, the primary schools, you know. Wow, finally. But what about our primary school? A child, 3 years old, draw as Basquiat, as Picasso, then enters the school. He's destroyed for life because he learned how to, the maestra, you know, the lady or the man teaching, how the teacher draws, and the teacher don't know anything about drawings. So if I ask people, okay, how many of you know how to draw? Without any shame, 50% of people say, I don't know how to draw. That's terrible. What does it mean? I don't know drawings. So I have this hiatus, this enormous gap from the maximum, from the top of poetry we could achieve very easily, and the miserable life that we live in relationship with the objects. Not speaking about the persons, you know. So there are a lot of things to do. Sorry, it was very long. I love these topics.
I think it was a good answer. Does someone else want to?
It's okay. It's a good answer. Any more questions? Raise your hand.
Thank you. I would love to hear your thoughts on human connection. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit on this and the bottom line, because we are talking about fabricators, vendors creating materials, designers who are envisioning these things to be created. And I think two things. One is, I think bottom line always speaks volumes in the world that we live in, right? The cost of producing these things. This is the cheaper way. This is the easier way. And that element of pushing beyond that and wanting to be surrounded by objects that are better for you, that elevate, that delight, kind of gets lost because it's just, how do we do this? We're not willing to push further. I also think, though, that while it's the responsibility of the fabricators and the designers to push, it's also the responsibility of us as the end users or the consumers. And so how do we shift that mindset as someone who, I select objects to put in someone's home or in a workplace? How do I encourage that difference in mindset and viewing the world to push on my designer to say, no, I really believe in sustainability, or I really believe in the beauty of the objects that should be in this workplace. It's also our responsibility, and I would just kind of love sort of your thoughts on that, of how we can sort of, this is a big challenge, but I think it's an important one because it's not just the designer's responsibility or the fabricators, it's all of us.
Thank you.
That is a great question, because it really is all of our responsibility, right? And so how do we think about all the choices that we make every day? We all still want to get paid, or to have the ability to purchase what we need, the food we need, the rent we need, the whatever it is we need. And so I think the challenge, it's an educational challenge, it's a cultural challenge, a change in culture to not only feel like it's an endless stream of possibility, that maybe limits are not a bad thing, right? But it has to change on a consumer level as much as anything else. It's a systemic issue. I don't have a simple answer to that, but it's a really important question to ask.
It is an important question. I've got 2 kids, 2 teenage girls, and they're not asking about, they have no interest or environmentalism. And they live in our house, and my wife and I are very keen to bring that, but it's not translated at all, and nor have any of their friends. And so there is an education piece. I often come back, Bruce Mao talks about not sort of browbeating people into sustainability, but inspiring. So I think it is a design challenge, is to, sustainability is often talked about in terms of scarcity and we need to do with less, and it's all about that austerity. And I think there are ways in which we can live with far more sustainably without having to be austere, but it's a design challenge. It's a point of understanding how to make the sustainable choice a better choice. And that is a design problem, is that whether people are aware of it or not, can we design solutions that are simply better and people would want them more? And by the way, they're going to be a lot better on many other fronts. I think we're in this sense of flux, time of flux right now, and things are shifting, but I think expectations are changing as well. But I certainly see it as a challenge for me, first and foremost, as to how to do that. So.
You know, I think one of the things that we don't realize is, like, we always think of physical pollution, but we don't think of mental pollution. And we're actually living in a world with, I think, even more mental pollution than physical pollution. And I think that's, you know, what you're talking about when you're talking about the words that you said, to me, were very moving, because you don't want to live in that world of pollution. If I think, you know, every time I go to a rural setting, or even go back to where my parents were from in Italy, there's something so appropriate. Everything is done beautifully. It's all practical, but it's all beautiful. And yet we live in a highly developed, highly, produced world of proliferations. My parents used to, in our dialect, it's called l'arache, which, like, they always would complain that we would never know how to live because we were born in l'abbondanza, in this too much of everything. But there is a Canadian person at West who identified this mental pollution, and I don't think we've come to grips really with it. But the mental pollution means that we are able to surround ourselves with environments that are hideous. And I call it the being trapped between the horror of the actual and the nightmare of the imagined. So we have this world, and I'm trying to reconcile it. I first saw it right in my last year of architectural school, that, like, in a certain way we're being driven to this sustainable world, which could be a horror of the actual, or we're being pushed into this cyber world, which is a nightmare of the imagined. But actually where the real power and beauty is when you somehow figure out the balance between them, right? And I just think we need to do a lot of work to clear people's minds. And I don't know how we do that, but maybe that becomes a big project of design. And I love how you described it in the Danish school. I'll hand it to you, but you probably have something more.
I have some idea. How much time do we have now? Sorry, secret idea. Next time.
But we can talk
I can propose to approach, if you have also further question, to approach our speakers at reception, but, as Mario says,
I knew that all these topics are so many, so interesting. You go through talking about philosophy, art, and poetry, right, Mario? So now it's time to conclude with a poet, and also a man involved in industry. Here is Corrado Paina. Corrado is here, right? Huh? Corrado? I'm and I was saying it's time of a poet, a poet can conclude our
all right.
chat, and so thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you, and welcome. And really, Marco, Veronica, Pietro, grazie. I asked to Pietro to bring some stats, you know, because my job, I'm the executive director of the Italian Chamber of Commerce, said, no, poetry. And so I said, okay, all right, I'm going to bring some poetry. And actually, the whole issue was about poetry, and I was enchanted. I had the pleasure to spend few hours last night with Trimarchi, Mario, and incredible, really. What is incredible about, sometimes people come from Europe, is the depth of how they get to something, right? And the depth that there is behind. There's never a word that is wrong, never a word that is put in the wrong place. So you start to dream. And I ask you to dream a little bit with me about poetry, because Trimarchi said, we have to start from something. And he said, sculpture. I say we have to start from something. If I can have my picture behind, I would say, you know, we start with poetry. And I asked to put on my back, but it's not very important, a picture of the Harris water filtration plant. Most of you are surely used to the place. They know the place. They're familiar. It was built in the 30s by some sort of a crazy commissioner, Harris, and some architects. And it went on, the expansion went on for another 20 years. There were incredible ideas behind. One was to connect land and earth. And if you go there, you realize, you look at the lake in a different way. We've been trying, everything is possible in the city to hide the lake. On the contrary, we say of Chicago, and we did a good job, actually. So we don't know that there's water. But when you go to the Harris water filtration plant, you really feel that you are in a no space, but not in no space, in a no space, in a space where you lose yourself, which is the purpose of poetry sometimes. And Michael Ondacci, in the 70s, as you know, writes one of the most beautiful books in Canada, which is, you know, In the Skin of the Lion. And if you remember, at one point, Patrick, the rebellious guy, wants to destroy the building. He wants to put a bomb. The whole book is about the viaduct that connects, you know, Danforth with Bloor, and all these people coming from Europe and working and dying in the job place. And then 1988, who comes? Comes Aldo Rossi. And Aldo Rossi comes here, sees the place, and he decides to build part of a charrette. He decides to build the Lighthouse Theater, Il Teatro del Faro. Honestly, in Italy sounds outstanding. It's really beautiful, Il Teatro del Faro. A place really of poetry, a place where you connect the land and the water. It's really a place where you can have things arise. And I was thinking, you know, after the place has been used by cinematographers, commercially being shot there, but then the place became some kind of deserted for a long time. I used to go always there, trying to find myself. What did they call Kerrance, you know? You remember Rimbaud going around and looking for himself and for something. And when you are there, you realize that there's only one people that go there. Some seniors, solitary seniors, totally drop out of society. People were walking on the beach during the year with their dogs, now, post-COVID philosophy. And what else? You have a particular ethnic group that has given life to this building to the point when I organized their weddings there. I saw some beautiful ceremonies there. Finally, somebody that belongs to something and takes control of something in this city. We need to scream sometime in this city. We don't scream enough, right? And I thought about another topos, another locus that is interesting, always about poetry, object, tombstones, the graves. When you go to the cemetery, in Rome, the Catholic or Protestant cemetery, you have the graves of Shelley, Gadda, Gramsci. Pasolini wrote one of the most beautiful collection of poetry, looking at the grave of Gramsci. But also you have Keats. And Keats, there are a few words on the grave. And everybody feels that has understood the poetry, this fantastic poet who died in Rome without having set foot in Rome, practically. Because he arrived to Italy to get better, and he just died, unfortunately. So he had never really a chance to meet Italy, to see Italy. Here lies one whose name was written in water. That's what is written. Water is always the element. Now, the cemetery, by the way, the cemetery is run by a board. Once every certain number of years, Canada is the country that runs the cemetery. A few years ago, the ambassador of Canada in Rome was the president of the association. Now there's this beautiful grave dedicated to Gregory Corso. Remember, the big generation. The guy wrote few words. By the way, there's a mistake. There's the word spirit, and he's written spirit. And Patti Smith in her last book writes, how is it possible there's this mistake? I don't know. They made a mistake. But it says a very simple poem, beautiful. Spirit has life. It flows through the depth of me, endlessly, like a river unafraid to become the sea. And that's, the whole recipe of the design. The river becomes the sea. That's what we want, right? The design will stay with us. The object will stay with us. It becomes what it really is born to. Not just, yes, being small, but being big. I think that your philosophy, if I may translate it, is not seize the day. It's more complicated. It's enjoy the day, but keep prolonging it. And make it, a life. Make a manifesto for life. So I just would like to close with a few lines from a poem by a Canadian poet. By the way, before I mention this poet, I would like to remind you, a beautiful book written by Pier Giorgio Di Cicco, Municipal Mind. Pier Giorgio Di Cicco was a poet of Italian origin, American, came to live in Toronto. In the 70s, was considered one of the top poets in Canada. Obviously today we've forgotten about him. But he wrote this book. The essence of this book, Municipal Mind, was we have to fall in love with our city. It's such a banality, the book sold a lot, but nobody really understood the message, but it's so simple. We have to fall in love with your city. And that's how you prolong, that's how the river becomes sea, that's how you prolong time and everything. In Celebration by Mark Strand, Mark Strand is a Canadian poet, but lives in the United States, so everybody thinks that he's American, but he's Canadian. He was born in Canada. Probably from American parents, but he was born in Canada. Very important. And he dedicated a poem to the chair. And you mentioned the chair. And this is a long poem, so I'm just going to the last lines, and then I go, I promise. I could speak about poetry for years, I mean, at the Chamber of Commerce, we have nothing else to do, really. So, in Celebration by Mark Strand, you sit in a chair, touched by nothing, feeling the old self become the older self, imagining only the patience of water, the boredom of stone. You think the silence is the extra page. You think that nothing is good or bad, not even the darkness that fills the house while you sit watching it happen. You have seen happen before. Your friends move past the window, their faces soiled with regret. You want to wave, but cannot raise your hand. You sit in a chair. You turn to the nightshade, spreading a poisonous net around the house. You taste the honey of absence. It is the same wherever you are. The same if the voice rots before the body, or the body rots before the voice. You know that desire leads only to sorrow. The sorrow leads to achievement, which leads to emptiness. You know that this is different, but this is the celebration, the only celebration. That by giving yourself over to nothing, you shall be healed. You know, there is joy in feeling your lungs prepare themselves for an ashen future. So you wait. You stare and you wait. And the dust settles, and the miraculous hours of childhood wander in darkness. Thank you very much, and thank you to all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the panelists. So on behalf of the Consul General, the Italian Cultural Institute, and the Italian Trade Commission, thank you very much for joining us, and to our wonderful speakers, to Helen Kerr, Fletcher, Luigi Ferrara, and of course, Mario Trimarchi. Grazie.